Assalamu alaikum. Everybody who's attending the lecture, we encourage you to come forward, inshallah. And if you have to socialize, we always have the lobby and the gym area, inshallah. So that way we can have some silence here as we speak. I'd like to introduce our two guest speakers today, Brother Monam Salam and Brother Amjad Qadri. And they are from Satona capital. Brother Amjad is coming here from Chicago, and Brother Monam Salam from Seattle, Washington. Thank you for traveling this great distance and coming and helping us out with some advice, inshallah. I'd like to reiterate one more point that our masjid has been investing with the Amana funds for almost 2 decades now. Our endowment funds are with them, and they've been doing pretty well compared to the rest of the market. So that's the confidence we have when we invited them over here, inshallah. Without taking more of your time, I'd like them to proceed, inshallah. Bismillah. Go ahead.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله Is this working? Inshallah, tonight we'll be talking about Islamic investing. This is something that majority of you end up probably doing, inshallah, if you want to at some point in time retire. And this is something that I believe is on most of our minds. Is there a point when we can stop working, whether we work as a teacher, as an engineer, as a restaurant owner? Will we be I don't know what happened. Oh. Okay. I like this better. It'll let me stand. The other one I felt like I had to sit down for some reason. Alhamdulillah. So, we think about this when for retirement, and for many of us, we might do this through either a 401k plan or some type of IRA, and then we're not always clear is what we're doing according to the Islamic principles. And so, inshallah, tonight we'll be able to help do 3 things. My goal is to help you understand what Islamic investing is, help you understand what are the different markets, and then the last one is to understand this thing called the stock market and why we should not be afraid of it, even though one of the times that we hear about it the most is when it goes down. So inshallah, with that, I'll start. In any type of financial presentation that we have, there's always disclosures, and the disclosures are very important for us to understand that when it comes to investing, especially as an Islamic investing principle, there's always a chance of loss. And when it comes to investing in the stock market, there's definitely a chance for loss. And inshallah, we'll discuss this more, but it's one of the best places to put your money for long-term investments. And long-term usually is defined as 4, 5+ years. So I have some prizes here for those that participate, inshallah. And even though they just look like basic pens, they're actually very good quality pens. And many of the people that have gotten them, they asked us to send them more, especially offices that need them or lawyers' offices. So inshallah, for those that participate, you'll get a prize tonight. So what are some of the reasons? I've mentioned retirement, but what are some of the other reasons why you might save? I know someone owns her over there, so their parents should have a good reason to save. College, great. Anything else? Okay, so whoever said that, I couldn't see you, but please come get a pen afterwards, inshallah. So college is one of the reasons, saving for education, buying a home for anyone that hasn't bought a home yet, children's education we mentioned, Hajj is another really good reason to start saving, and then the last one that we see up there is health savings. Now there might be other things in here. In the Muslim community, some people in the Muslim community like to save for weddings. They want to make sure that their son or daughter gets a proper wedding, so that's another reason that it might be. And there's many others that you can list, but here we go through just some of the aspects. And when we're doing that, we have to look at what are the habits of really good savers, but more so savers that are investors that help their money grow for them. And when we get into some of the graphs, then inshallah you'll really understand. Young man there in the glasses, what's your name? Rayan? Rayan, I am glad you're here. When you see this graph that I'm going to show, I wished when I was your age, I would have looked at it because I would have immediately started putting some money away. So with that, habits of highly successful people. And the second one that we'll see, this is where Rayan, your age comes into play, save early and often. And I'm sure you're probably not making money now, but if you are through babysitting or car washing or whatever, mowing lawns, whatever you may be doing, you might be able to get started in this. But the first one there is investing for the long term. And the reason why this is important is if you have any experience like I do, I'm age 47 by now, you would have maybe invested in several different things in your life. And you realize anytime someone tells you, hey, I'm going to make you money, it's easy, it's going to be quick, don't worry, you'll get a good return, majority of the time you will lose all of your money and maybe your friendship too. So, if anyone comes to you with something like that, keep that in mind. Don't even talk to me, talk to some of the older Ammos and Khaliyas in the community, they'll tell you the same thing. Someone comes to you with something like that, there's a very good chance that you'll end up losing your money. The few other points that are on here, diversification is very important. What does diversification mean? That means that if you're going to invest in a gas station, that you don't invest in the gas station at the corner of University Boulevard and Lansing. You make sure you do maybe a little bit in that one, and then you do one at the corner of Flint and University Boulevard, but we know that Flint is having trouble, so if that has trouble, then you had some in Lansing, you had some in Ann Arbor, you had some in Canton. You make sure you diversify your money by spreading it around, so if one area gets into trouble, then you're not stuck with it. This is a very important one, and this is something that, even being in the industry, I have to remind myself of this. Don't try to time the market. It's more important to have money. So the saying goes, it's more important to have time in the market than timing the market. So what does that mean? That means it's more important if you have some money sitting to put it in the market and just leave it than trying to wait for, oh, the market is going to go down, so I'm going to time it and put it in. Because what will happen with anyone that tries to do that is you will never catch the bottom. You'll end up getting it somewhere on its way up. So you might as well just put it in, just wait, because in the long run, as we'll see when some of the graphs come up, the down part will be so little that it would not have even made a difference in what you've done over the long term. Appreciate the impact of fees and costs. So just be cognizant that when you're investing, that you understand all the fees that go with it. And we'll get into some of that with us. Understanding emotional bias. This is a very strong one. I don't know if there's any traders in the room today, but if there are, this one is really about emotional bias. Even though I work in the industry, I don't own any individual stocks at the moment. I am thinking about trying to do that, but one of the reasons I don't, and because I'm in the industry, I have friends from Michigan, and then where I live in Chicago, different investment groups. And one of the things that you constantly see people feeling is that when they invest in a stock, that right away that stock goes down. And I don't know if other people feel this way, but they feel like they're the bad luck charm. So as soon as, I'll just use Tesla because everyone likes to talk about it as an example. As soon as they invest in Tesla, Tesla goes down. And they're like, oh, and then they sell, and then they lose money. And then as soon as they sell, they feel like Tesla goes up. This is called emotional bias. It's usually not true. You, one person, probably did not affect that large corporation, but this is the way people feel, and a lot of the time they end up buying and selling at the wrong time. I think the statistic says 95%, is that about right, of most individual investors end up losing money and for sure not beating the market or the funds in the market. Understanding volatility, this is very, very important to understand because this year the market is down. So you have to understand the market goes up and down, but again, we're in the market for the long term. The downturn will look like a little hiccup, and inshallah we'll see some of those graphs. Distinguish between good companies and good investments. This almost speaks for itself. We have to understand that the cash balance is there, things along those lines. And we'll get into what makes companies Sharia compliant, inshallah, in the middle of the presentation. Understanding that value is driven by cash flow. Again, this just goes back to making sure companies have good balance sheets and they're stable companies. And then the last one is take advantage of your 401k plans. This is very, very important. Most employers match money for your 401k. That is free money that is sitting there for you. So it's important to take advantage of it. In majority of the 401ks, or a lot of the 401ks that we know of, you're able to buy Islamic funds, and we can help you do that. And if you're not, we can also help you with that. So with that, we'll talk about college briefly, get into retirement, and then get into the different type of avenues that you can save, and then we'll get into Islamic investing. Investing for college, this is, most of us know, especially being in a college town, you probably have a good pulse on this, that the average college tuition has gone up from 10,740 to more than 38,000. And then Moni, my colleague, has been reading that in this last year for a private school, it's gone up to $60,000. Alhamdulillah, you guys have a very good public school here at MSU, so it's not something, inshallah, that you have to worry about. But even then, I know for the public school I went to in Illinois, the tuition has fallen completely in line with this, that it's gone up drastically. Now, what do? The idea is to be able to save early. So as soon as your kids are born, you can start saving in a educational savings account, also known as the Coverdale account, and you could put $2,000 per child away in this account. The money goes in post-tax, and then it grows tax-free, and when it's used for their education, then it can remain tax-free. One of the other ways to do something very, very similar to this is to be able to use your own Roth IRA, which gives you similar benefits to this, and a added benefit that it would not be in your child's name. The other ways to save for college, though they might not fall into the Sharia compliancy, just based on what your state allows, is a 529 plan. And in the 529 plan, it is a state-governed plan, so they choose which of the funds that are in there you're allowed to invest in and you're not allowed to invest in. I know for the Illinois state plan, I can't invest in it because there are no Sharia compliant options, but I know at one point we were hoping to try to talk to some of the administrators in Lansing, actually. This was a few years ago, to see if we can get either the option like you can in your 401k going through a brokerage account to get Islamic funds, or to add one of the Islamic funds to there. So here's some useful resources when it comes to college. ISNA.net, Islamic Scholarship Fund. We added a continuous charity. This is a slightly newer one. All of these have different type, like FAFSA, of scholarships, financial aid, things that will help you when it comes to colleges and understanding what the cost might be and what your kids might qualify for, inshallah. Now begins what most of us are probably concerned with. I know that I think about this, and with the market being down this year, I try not to see what my balance is, but retirement journey. And the most important question in the retirement journey is, will I have enough money? So how do we determine this? So let me get an understanding from all of you. If you are making, let's say, $50,000 a year, and you're coming close to retirement, how much of that $50,000 in a percentage do you think you'll need at the time of retirement? So if you're thinking 50%, that means you'll only need $25,000 a year. If you're thinking 80%, that means you'll need about $40,000 a year. So what percentage do you think of the salary that you make now, whether it's 50 or whether it's 100, what percentage of it do you think you'll need now? Go ahead, you have your finger up. You don't look at him. You had your finger up like this. Maybe you were just scratching, but you can take a guess. You'll get a pen. It won't hurt you. Anyone else? 60? Good answer. Yes. 30%? 80%. Okay. Any other answers? Any of the sisters? Absolutely. She said, wouldn't it be based on how much you need per year? And that's why I'm asking. So if you're at near retirement, inshallah, let's say you're making $100,000, if you had to guess, I'm just saying guess, how much of that $100,000 do you think you'll need? So alhamdulillah, we got a few good answers, 80%, and then I forgot, what was the first one? 30? No, 60%. those are both beautiful answers. The financial planners in the industry historically have said between 70 to 80% of what you make near the end of your earning years is what you'll need. So that means if you're making $50,000, you'll need about $40,000 in retirement. And it's funny, Brother Rashid, that I thought you said 30% because yesterday when we did this at one of the communities, one of the brothers said 30%. So I asked him, I said, listen, you're saying 30%. So that means many of us, including my we need to make. So I said, first, I live in Chicago. You guys have heard this, but I live in a county called Cook County. A lot of people call it Crook County because of all of the politicians. And so I told her, I go, let's think about the taxes that we have to pay. And so the first one, I said, okay, I'm not sure if you know, but the taxes that we have to pay on a monthly basis almost come out to $1,000. That's almost as much as some people pay in rent. And she was a little surprised, and she's like, okay, but we won't have the mortgage on top of that. I go, yes, that's true. So at least that'll be one blessing, inshallah. We'll have our house paid off by then. And then she said, you know, and the kids will be done with college. I'm like, really, when is that going to happen, sweetheart? My wife wanted to have lots of kids. MashaAllah, we have 4 kids. And so I was just like, Habibti, please, I want to buy a house. Can I have a down payment? I said, what are you going to tell her? And my wife is just like, of course I'm going to help her, my Habibti. What am I going to do? My wife is Syrian, by the way, so that's why I'm saying Habibti and not my Pyari Bachi or whatever it is in Urdu. I should be more familiar with Urdu, but sometimes it skips my mind. So she's like, of course I want to help my kids. So then I said, you know, and as I mentioned, my wife is from Syria. She, mashallah, she helps her cousins that are in Syria because of what's happening. And I said, at the time of retirement, would you want to continue to help your cousins? She's like, of course, inshallah, you know, I want to be able to do that. And then I said, you always talk about, you know, traveling. So when it comes time to retire, will you want to continue to travel? She's like, of course, yes, I want to travel. And so after that, and after talking through it, then I went through one last example, and this is something that many of you can probably relate to. I said, you know, alhamdulillah, we get to go to community dinners. Our kids go to the Islamic school. Every year the Islamic school has a dinner. They ask for money. I'm like, wouldn't you want to continue to help the community while you're older? And especially as you get older, you want to try to give back more. And she's like, no more donations when we get old. Obviously, she was joking, but this just gives you an idea of how much money you'll need. Many of us think, you know, our expenses will really go down, but also as we get older and we become grandparents and we get invited to more weddings than we do now, you know, you want to try to give as much back as possible. And so keeping that in mind, it's a good idea to understand that even more than 60 or 80%, we might be looking at closer to 100%. Also to keep in mind the fact that healthcare costs are going up. So when you're thinking of retirement, we should definitely keep that in mind. And the way to get to that number is by making sure that we're saving enough. And what does that mean, saving enough, or how we're saving? So most of the financial advisors say when you start saving early, when you first start working at the age of 20, 23, around there, if you save 10% of your salary, then you will most likely get to the number that you want. Now, if you're older, that obviously means that you have to save more, but the beauty of that is most likely as you get older, you'll be making more, and we'll go through some of the numbers and stuff here in a little bit in the graphs. The sources of your income at the time of retirement will be your personal savings, pension plans, which sadly are not around to the extent that they were, but we mention them just in case, Social Security, and some people might be employed during retirement. And it just depends on what your circumstances are and how much you want to either really retire and travel, or if you work at a place like, alhamdulillah, I do, where you have a passion for what you're doing, then you might continue to do it till your later years. Keeping that in mind, the ways to save in your personal savings is these are the ways that you can save. The first one is a 401k plan, which inshallah a lot of you have access to. If you don't, we have started providing 401ks, whether it's solo or a SEP-like IRA, or if you have a small business and you'd like a 401k, alhamdulillah, we're able to provide that now. Or IRAs and HSAs. HSAs are one of the best ways to save in America, and if you are not taking advantage of this, you should, because it has a triple tax benefit. What that means is when you put the money in, it's considered pre-tax. You're able to claim some of it on your taxes. When you grow the money, very similar to a Roth, it grows tax-free, and then when you take it out, it remains tax-free. And it's the only instrument that you're able to do that with. Now, we've included a few things on here that are not halal, and I'll mention all three of those: annuities, bonds, and certificates of deposit. The reason why we have them on here is because these are ways to save, but as Muslims, sadly, this is not something that we're allowed to do because they're all interest-based. Now, the next one is stocks and mutual funds. Mutual funds are a group of stocks that you put together for a like-minded goal. And so the Amana funds that we have, their number one goal is to be Sharia compliant. Alhamdulillah, that also means that we've decided to be sustainable. We pick companies that are really good in governance and environment. And then we have a few different funds that have different objectives. One is the growth fund, which has been around for 27 years. One is the income fund, which has been around for 34 years. I'm a little off. I don't know why my brain's pausing a little today. And then some of the other places is real estate or life insurance cash values. Anyone that's interested in learning more about real estate, you know, again, as I mentioned, throughout my life now, I've had the opportunity to invest in different things. And sometimes maybe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had me do that so that I learn, so that I can help the community. But sometimes, you know, it's good to learn from other people's mistakes than to do it yourself. Talk to people that are in real estate and really understand what is the real return that you're getting, and then compare it with something that doesn't require your time or work, like the Amana funds, and see if it's worth it. Now, when it comes to Social Security, which was one of the other places, it was your own savings, pensions, which sadly are not around that much, and then Social Security as the three possible sources of income at retirement. So we've talked about pensions, we've talked about personal savings. Now the third one, Social Security. Does anyone want to take a guess of what the average Social Security check is in America? 800? Great answer. Again, for those that answered, please come get pens afterwards, inshallah. Any other guesses? 1,100? Anyone else? Yes, yes. 1,000? Great answer. I know you just want the pen. I'll give you two, don't worry. Anyone else? Any other questions? It's a little bit higher. Alhamdulillah, it's gone up recently. Yes. 1,700. That's actually the closest answer. So we'll go ahead. It's 1,669. So you've won a prize. You know, I think I might have some magnets. Inshallah, you'll get one of those. So the average Social Security check is 1,669. Now, I know we live in a college town, so rent might be a little bit cheaper, but also it could be the other way. Rent might be more. How much is a two-bedroom apartment here, rent-wise? 1,000? 1,100? So, okay. So if you take a rent of a two-bedroom apartment at $1,100, and then you add your cable bill, you add your electric bill, you add your cell phone bill, and you come up with it, $1,600 is a little difficult to live on a monthly basis. And again, when we retire, inshallah, if we are able to lower all of our bills, that might be nice. But what happens when you have, you know, the most reliable car in America and you've been driving it around, and when you get into retirement, you have the same car and it did great for you, so of course you're not going to replace it. But you know, 3 years into your retirement, that most reliable Toyota car dies. We know it's Toyota, we're in the Muslim community, so, you know, so the Toyota car dies, then you need a new Toyota. Inshallah, by then, maybe it's another company will be more reliable, but if it's not, then you have to take into account, you know, you might have some car payments to make. Or if you take a chunk out, then that decreases your monthly payment amount. So even though this might look like a large number, it's very important that we're saving on our own along with planning with Social Security. Now, I know that many people have seen the news headlines, Social Security is going bankrupt, and at its current pace, the year 2034, and you know that might seem far away, but it's within 12 years now. And it used to be the year 2037, moved to 36. The current number that I saw is 2034. And this used to really worry me, and I'm like, okay, forget Social Security. I got to just save on my own. But then I got some relief from one of our colleagues that retired a few months ago. He's like, oh, they always say that, but the government will figure it out. So inshallah, Social Security will still be around. But as Muslims, we have to be the best of planners to make sure that we are taking care of ourselves. And my intention is that inshallah, if Social Security does come through for me, that will be the cream on top, and that will be the money that we can inshallah donate back to the masjid. And keeping all this in mind, it's important that we plan properly for retirement, and also the masjid makes the community aware of this, because what we are seeing is also a lot of people that retire, even though their whole life they were not zakat beneficiaries, at retirement they end up becoming zakat beneficiaries. And it's really something that's mentally hard for them, but also financially they would never do that unless they came into that position. So again, this requires us inshallah to plan appropriately. With that, I was going to go through the different type of IRAs. There's a few different types. There's a Roth and traditional, where you take the money that you earn and you put it in there, and that limit is $6,000 per year. Unless you're over 40, then it's $7,000. And then there is two other IRAs, the Simple and SEP, which if you are a business owner or you are individually a self-employed contractor, those are ones you would use, or if you have a small business. The slides for the other ones are missing, but I don't like to go in the general discussion into details on those, but if anyone has questions, we're happy to talk you through it, either in the questions and answers or also, inshallah, one-on-one. IRA stands for Individual Retirement Account. So many people ask, you know, can I have a joint IRA with my wife? You can't have a joint IRA because IRA is individual based, but if your intention is, hey, whatever I put away, I want to put away for my spouse, then when you put away $1,000 in yours, just open up a similar one for your spouse, inshallah, and then you'll have the same amount in retirement. Now, if you've paid attention to nothing I've said all night, and Rayan, this is for you. What's your name? Riyadh. Oh, Rayan and Riyadh. We got two R's. And what are your names? Mariam and Juhi? Okay, Mariam and Juhi. Guys, you are going to be very excited when you see this map. So we see here that if someone is saving $6,000 a year, that's $500 a month. And parents, you can also just look at this and say, okay, I'm going to start early for my kids. If you start at the age of 25 and you use a rate of return of 7%, and alhamdulillah, both of our American-based oldest Islamic funds have done better than that, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But if you use the rate of return of 7%, you'll have at the time of retirement $1.3 million almost. Now, if you wait 10 years, and you wait till the age of 35, same amount of money every year, $6,000, $500 a month, you'll have less than half of that, $606,000. And if you wait 20 years, if you wait till the age of 45, you'll have less than a fourth of that, $261,000. So this is the reason why it's important to save early and save often. And this is where Rayan, Riyadh, Juhi, Mariam, if you guys see this, and you know, when you start saving early and by the time you even reach 50, you're like, wow, I'm already at $1 million, maybe I can retire soon. Please make dua for me. I'm Amjad, I'll probably be in the grave, but just make a dua for me that I remember he told me to save and I saved and he gave me a free pen. So inshallah, remember this. And the beauty of this is that you only put in $240,000. The rest of the million plus came from the market returns, the halal returns that the market gave you. So that's just to get an idea. We went over traditional and Roth briefly, and we can go into that a little bit more. I'm going to do a couple of more slides, and then I'm going to go into the Sharia compliance. This is the last slide before I get into what makes stocks Islamically compliant. Oh, one thing that I did want to mention here in the graph. You know, many people are scared of the stock market because we hear about it when the market goes down. One thing to remember is since inception, since 1918, the stock market has went up on average about 10% per year. So that's not talking about our funds or anything else. Alhamdulillah, our funds have done a little bit better than that as well, but on average. So the stock market for long term is one of the best places to get a very good return so that you will be able to get to a point of retirement. And that ties right into this slide. Many people will have 401k, 403 plans through their employer. A lot of people end up leaving their money in the default funds. That usually means that you won't get the 7% or the 10% returns. You'll probably get something closer to 3-4% because those are usually very conservative funds. And then more importantly than that is the fact that most of those default funds usually have companies that are not halal or not Sharia compliant. So it's important to look at what you're invested in. You know, some people think, oh, I have no control over this. That's not true. You have 100% control over it, which is also why it's important to make sure that we're paying zakat on it. Okay, this is the last section of my presentation, and then we'll open it up to questions and answers. The last part is, okay, Amjad, this is all well, great, and fine that we can do this, but is this halal? And you know, when I started working at the age of 20, I was always concerned with this, and one of my biggest concerns was, I'm not sure if I want to do this, even though I know I should, because I'm not sure the companies I can invest in are halal. And what I did when I first started working is I called Munim, who's, mashallah, been with Saturna, with Amana now for 20 years, and I said, hey, listen, can you help me pick the ones that are the most Sharia compliant, or is there a way that I can get to the Amana funds? And so he helped me do that, so I was able to start saving early. And what makes them Sharia compliant is the fact that we have a group of scholars that told us what the criteria is, and then we have a group of scholars that continue to make sure we follow that criteria. And what is this criteria that I'm talking about, and what the criteria that the scholars came up with? So I want everyone to think back to 1984. Think back to where you were. MashaAllah, some of you in the room, the young ones, 1984, you weren't even around. You don't even know what that year means. So, you know, for me, I was, 10 years old roughly back then. I remember my mom took me to the bank to open a savings account. And then a few years later, my parents realized, oh, savings account have interest, so they're haram. And so like maybe many of our dads during that time, they would try to educate the banker and think that if they told them interest is haram, they would become Muslim. So they would give them lectures, but that didn't work. And they didn't really understand because everything had interest in it in the banking system. But there was a group of Muslim individuals that said, hey, there's got to be a solution for Muslims to be able to save and that it could be halal. So they got together, and this group could have been very similar to the people in the room. And inshallah, this group will include Rayan and Riyadh and Mariam and so forth. And you guys will come up with something like this that has been a huge asset to the Muslim community. So they got together and they approached a group of scholars and they said, hey, can we invest in this thing called the stock market? And what the scholars told them is, everything in Islam is halal unless it's haram. So what does that mean? That means you cannot invest in any companies that are dealing directly with interest, alcohol, exploitive media, gambling, or pork. And this is clear. We all know this. We would not invest in an alcohol company, locally if a store was selling alcohol. Same thing. We should try to make sure we don't do that in our retirement account. But then the ulama went on further. And they said you have to also make sure that the companies don't have more than 33% debt to a 12-month market cap, trailing market cap. That they don't have more than 45% in accounts receivables and more than 5% of secondary income from haram revenues. So after doing that, since 2 of our funds are in the S&P 500, if we filter everything out, we're still left with, probably 200 stocks that we can choose from. Then the job becomes of people like Monim, our portfolio manager, which of those 200 stocks, which 30 or 40 of them make the best for our income fund, which make the best for our growth fund. And that's where you'll see that, alhamdulillah, each of our funds now, since inception, we've formed more. So in 1986, 84, the thought first started. In 86, we launched our first fund. And since then, we added the next one, which is the growth one, which is capital appreciation, which is in 1994 for 27 years. And then the community said, okay, this was right when the developing world was doing well. We want something international. We also want something to hedge against the dollar. And so in 2009, we formed the Developing World Fund. And then more recently, some of our earliest clients that started in the late 1980s or even as early as 86, they're now approaching retirement. And so they need something that's a very low risk fund, which is just capital preservation and income. And that's when the Sukuk Fund, which is the participation fund, started. And with that, mashallah, you have the whole gambit of all the funds that we have. Since then, as I mentioned earlier, we have the 401k. One of the things that many of you should know is if you are an MSU employee in any capacity, you have access to the 401k or the 403b, and you are able to buy the Islamic funds within it. And we're happy to help you with that, inshallah. The next few slides just have returns. I'm not going to go into that much details of this, but here you see the Amana Income Fund and the Growth Fund versus the market. And when I told you guys that, you know, in the long run, the downturns look like a little hiccup, back when COVID started, this was the downturn. Actually, this wasn't it. COVID, it would be right here. Back when COVID started, this was the downturn. And everyone's just like, oh my God, the world is ending. And this is what we hear every time the market goes down. But if you see from that down, what was it, 27%? It was about 27% down when COVID happened. It skyrocketed afterwards. We see another downturn coming now. Again, people are worried there's a downturn. Even though this looks large and looks like a huge mountain to climb back up, in the long run, it's going to look as small as that. Or if we go back, it'll continue to look smaller and smaller, which is why when I started, time in the market is more important than timing the market. With that, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up. Oh, I was just mentioning some of the other things that we offer. Alhamdulillah, now we offer full wealth management for those that are looking to do that, those that have a good amount of capital saved up now, whether it's in 401k or other places, inshallah, we can help you with that. We offer full financial planning. So if this is anything that you guys are interested in, or just even generational wealth building, then we'll help with the generational wealth building through the different avenues. One of the best ways to do that is the Roth IRA because it continues to be tax-free for the generations to come. So the Roth IRA that you start might be something that fully funds multiple grandchildren when they go to college, inshallah. With that, I'm going to ask my colleague Monim Salam to come up. And I would love for him to say a few words about the market in case people are interested just because of how volatile it is. Monim has been with the company now 20 years, mashallah. And before that, he was with some of the top financial companies. And what he did is he went to Malaysia for 7 years, helped our Malaysian company, which helped us do some more products, and also helped some of the Muslims that are all around the world with the different type of funding. The last thing that I wanted to say is many people that ask us, oh, which one of your funds should I invest in? On our website, we have the Amana Fund Selector. This helps you decide, hey, this is the stock that's right for me. What we tell many people is after that you've taken the quiz, come and talk to us. And we'll make sure that what the quiz answers are aligned with your age or your risk tolerance. If you're older, what you should be doing. If you're younger, what you should be doing. And with that, inshallah, I'll let Monim talk about the markets and then we'll open it up for questions and answers.
جزاك الله خير أمجد. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. الله أكبر الله أكبر الله
أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
Prayers and blessings be upon His Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So I'm going to be very, very brief. I know there's some questions that people are writing down. So if whoever has that box, if you can bring it up, so we can go through them, and the ones we don't want to answer, we don't have to answer. I'm just kidding. So we'll go through them, inshallah, and try to answer them. I just want to make a couple of quick comments. Amjad, did a great job, alhamdulillah, talking about Islamic investing, all of those things. The past couple of years have been very, very unique in the market. And if you can actually go back even back to 2008, and you can say the same thing, where the market, asset prices, real estate, whatever you want to call it, is all dependent on the number one factor that's going to cause asset prices to go up is going to be interest rates. Okay. Now interest rates have been the lowest they've ever been for a very, very long time, very, very close to zero, in fact. Now that tide or that tide is beginning to shift. And so what used to be, for example, mortgage rates last year you could get for 1.5, now it's almost close to 4% or 4.5%. Those, as interest rates go up, are going to continue to rise. And that causes the market, real estate, whatever asset that you have, it's going to cause it to go down. The one thing to keep in mind as you're thinking about this is that in the long run, however, the businesses begin to adjust to what's happening in the market or happening to interest rates, and they will figure out a way to be able to make money. The short term is going to be very volatile, usually to the downside, and that's exactly what's happening right now. It's really, really important, as Amjad mentioned, about our allocation, right? What you put the money into, whether it be growth, whether it be income, developing world, and those type of things. I want to just highlight one slide, if I might, and that is this one right here. Now, for most purposes, you would have said, for majority of that time that you see in the market from June to 2012, you probably would have said, you know what, I would have been better off in the growth fund because that $10,000 investment over a period of 10 years would have been about close to about $40,000 to $42,000. Whereas in the income fund, it was close to $32,000 or $33,000. But look at the volatility, right, which is how much it goes down when the markets are going down between the growth fund, the S&P, and the income fund, right? So the income fund, as Amjad mentioned, was only down as of June. Oops, wrong way. I'm going the wrong way. Oh, there you go. So as of June, it was only down 4%. And that's why you see basically that the downside on the income fund is very, very small, whereas the growth fund was about 11%. So yes, the growth fund does really well when things are well. But the income fund does well, does okay when things are well, but it really protects your assets on the way down. So that's why it's very, very important to have a balance between all the funds that we have, not just one or two of them, but all the funds that we have, and the fund selector will help you to be able to come up with that allocation. So I'm going to stop here. I will mention one thing, and we do, as Amjad mentioned, a couple of things. Our services, we have the funds. We do financial planning. So if you're looking for that right number that you need to retire, we will help you to be able to come up with that number. We have a podcast that we run called Halal Money Matters. It's available on our website, Google Play, and also Apple Podcasts as well. So please, take advantage of those services that we have that will help to educate you in this area. We actually recently did one, should be hopefully coming out very soon, on women and Islamic investing, particularly talking about unique characteristics of what women need to know about investing as well. So with that, inshallah, I'll stop and then we'll take these questions.
So I'll try to group a few of these questions together, and then I'm going to turn it over to Munim for the harder ones. So what makes a 401k halal? How do I make it halal? How do I buy halal funds with a 401k? And then, so we'll just answer that. So within your 401k, a lot of the times you'll have a brokerage option. From the brokerage option, you can go and you can look for the amount of funds, and that's how you make it halal. So any of these vehicles, 401k, IRAs, these are all empty vehicles. They're like empty pots. What you put in it is what would make it halal or not. So imagine it like an empty school bus. You put a bunch of kids that are going to the museum, it's completely halal. You put a bunch of college kids that want to go to a party, that's a whole different story. We'll have to ask the imam for a fatwa. But so the IRAs, the 401ks, they're just like that. You just have to make sure what you're buying within it that you have control over is halal. The one question that's linked to that is, can we link our retirement plan to an IRA? That is much more specific. You're allowed to roll your retirement plan into an IRA, and we can get into the details of that based on the individual. And inshallah, just see us afterwards, and we'll be happy to do that. And then for the two questions I'm going to turn over, are there any halal life insurance, and is Bitcoin halal?
Ooh, man. Those are the tough ones. Okay, so let's talk about life insurance first. So I'm not gonna give you like what's allowed, but let me just kind of break it down into how scholars think about it. So there's two camps in the world. Okay, there's one camp that says life insurance in general is not allowed. There's another camp that says life insurance is allowed. You call it a family takaful or something along those lines in the Muslim world. If you're of the camp that says that life insurance is not allowed, then please just close your ears and let me just talk to the people who think that it is allowed, because it's not going to make you any benefit to know that. So in the life insurance itself, what happens is that when you give the money to that insurance company, like in the US, let's supposing, you give the money to the insurance company, what they're doing is they're taking some of that and they're putting it towards the insuring you, and they're taking the majority of it and they're putting it into the market or in bonds or something along those lines. Now the contract that's made between the life insurance and yourself makes you part owner of that insurance product or part owner of whatever that's being invested. That is what the problem is with life insurance. So for example, if they didn't have any money that they were saving on the side, or if they put it into a halal option, if you were in the camp that life insurance is allowed, then it would be something that would be acceptable. You follow me so far? Okay. So that being said, term life insurance, for example, right, is only doing the cost of insurance. Thank you. They don't have any extra money that they're putting away for any kind of investment and those type of things. So based on what I just said, would term life insurance be allowed or not allowed? Anyone? Because if you don't answer, that means you don't understand what I'm saying. Allowed. It's halal. And the reason is because you're only paying for the cost of insurance. However, if you like a whole life policy or a term like a variable universal life, those are small amount goes for the premium for your life insurance. The larger amount goes towards the investments in the bonds, the market, those type of things. That's why it's actually not allowed. So hopefully, inshallah, that answers your questions about life insurance. The Bitcoin one is a little bit more difficult to answer. Again, because it's such a newer kind of product, there's actually two camps, amongst the scholars. The ones that actually say it's not allowed, let's just start there. The first thing that they tell you is that it's not allowed because of the gharar that's involved. Now, if you don't know what gharar is, gharar actually from a business, from a mu'amalat standpoint, is actually more complicated and more vast than riba is. Okay, gharar is very, very vast. It basically means uncertainty, right? And it also means that you don't know the price of something. Like, so for example, if I told you that I have this hat and I'm going to sell it for you for $10. By the time you come up here and take it from me, I'm like, no, sorry, it just went up to 15. That's gharar, because I don't have a price established as to what I'm willing to sell it to you at. So that's similar to cryptocurrency. I can buy something today for $10 or 10 Bitcoin. That the price of that Bitcoin within even the 5 minutes after I bought it could be 5% up, 10% down. Nobody really knows. So when the scholar said that it's not allowed, that's one of the reasons why they're using to be able to say that. The other part of it, the scholars say, is that for a lot of the transactions that happen in crypto, right, they're done on an anonymous basis, and thus it's actually an enterprise for illicit activity or illegal activity, and that's why it should not be allowed also. So for example, majority of the criminals out there, that if they want to transfer money back and forth across the world, now more than ever, they're actually using cryptocurrency to be able to do it, because it is, for the most part, anonymous. Okay, so that's on the camp of the not allowed. On the allowed part of it, let's be very honest. In mu'amalat, what's the general rule? That it's halal until you can prove that it's haram, right? That's a general rule. So in crypto, it would be the same thing. And so the ones that actually say it's allowed is there is some work that's going on to be able to give you that Bitcoin. But majority of the people are not doing the work. What's the work that happens in crypto? Anybody know? Mining. Mining is the work that happens. You're expending energy, you're taking money, you're making those algorithmic calculations, and then you're coming up with a hash, right? So that would be something that's, so the halal camp says, no, there is mining, there's work going on, and for that work, we're being compensated with Bitcoin or Ethereum, Litecoin, whatever it is that you actually have. Okay, follow me? Now, if you're trading it, then it becomes a different story. Because again, that the gharar begins to come into play as well, because you're not really doing any work for it, but it's possible that you don't know what the price established is. So inshallah, again, the two camps, I just wanted to give you both sides of it. Again, the jury's still out. You will find equal number, what I found scholars that say yes it is, with very valid arguments, and then on the other side, they know it's not allowed with very equally variable arguments that say that it's not allowed. So, I would say basically just, read those, ask somebody more knowledgeable than the two people sitting up here.
Thank you very much. So I'll go through again the easy questions, and I'll give it back to him for the hard one. So there's two questions on zakat on 401k. This is not really an easy question, but there is no one answer for this. There is, and I'm sure many of you know, but there's many ulama that have spoken about this, and you see a vast amount of difference of opinions. Having been in the field for 8 years and speaking for Munim a little bit, and he'll correct me if I'm saying something wrong. He's been doing this for 20 years. I believe you absolutely have to pay zakat on your 401k. I recently saw a very good presentation by a sheikh in Chicago from Sacred Learning Center. If you look up zakat and Sacred Learning Center, you'll probably find it. To me, I feel, and this is not Munim's opinion, this is mine. The one that I was saying was his opinion and mine, is that you have to pay zakat on 401k. Now, how much you pay and what amount, that's where the difference comes in. The one that makes the most sense to me, and it's broken down very well, is by Sheikh Hussein Abdul Sattar at Sacred Learning Center. But you'll see Sheikh Imam Tahir has a zakat video, Sheikh Yasser Qadi has a zakat video. So there's other opinions out there. So any one of the ones where someone says you have to pay based on how you're doing it, I think is okay. But if you want one that really just clicked for me, I'm happy to share the link. And then the second question that I'll do, and then I'll turn it over to Munim for the last question, is when you invest in a company, you become a shareholder, and the company becomes your wakil, representative above. What if the company takes a loan on your behalf? So this is when the criteria that the Islamic scholars came up with, and Munim, feel free to add to this, one of the things was that you cannot have more than 5% from a secondary source of haram income. So what does that mean? So let's take two examples as companies. So let's take Southwest Airlines and Bed Bath & Beyond. We know Southwest Airlines, their primary business is travel, and we know Bed Bath & Beyond, their primary business is to buy and sell goods. Now, if one of them or both of them started selling alcohol, would they be halal or haram would be the question. So first, let's ask, if Southwest Airlines started selling alcohol, how many people think that it would be haram to own? Okay, about 3 people. If Bed Bath & Beyond started selling alcohol, how many people think that it would become haram? Okay, we have more answers, and the room is actually correct. So Bed Bath & Beyond, their primary business is to buy and sell goods. And so when they sell alcohol, very similar to Target and Amazon, all three of these stocks that we used to own, and again, please correct me if I'm wrong, but as soon as they started selling alcohol, and the way we found out about Bed Bath & Beyond is they put it out in a publication, and we monitor, because this is why you have an active managed portfolio, and so we had to make sure that we took it out of our portfolio because they buy and sell goods, so the wine became part of their primary business. Southwest Airlines, their primary business is travel. Most of their income comes from travel. If they sell alcohol, it'll be a minority part, usually less than 5%. We don't own anything that we like an airline, but from all the companies that we own, majority of the haram income comes from their interest that they have from cash sitting. Like Apple and Google has a lot of cash sitting, and it comes out to 0.037, 0.067, less than a tenth of 1% is how much comes from a haram revenue source based on what we're seeing from the balance sheet. Just so you understand, even though the ulama gave us 5%, we don't try to come close to that criteria. And then for the last question, and we're happy to, if people want to ask individual questions, we have brochures with our information on it, and anyone can take a pen, even if you didn't participate. Feel free to come up for that. But the last question, Munim, is can you talk a little bit about what fractional banking is?
Thank you. Okay, this is okay. This is gonna be like a finance 101, if you don't mind, when it comes to fractional banking. Yeah. How many people are interested in the question? Just one, two? Okay, I'll come up afterwards, inshallah, and then we'll talk about it. It'll probably be easier to do that. Is there any other written down?
So there's a couple of ways to handle this. One is, first of all, Masha, you've taken all the right steps. And if anyone else needs help, I would go to him because he's already done a lot of the stuff that we would, and he's local, and he can help you easier. I'm also happy to do it, but I'm just saying sometimes it makes it easy to have someone local. We can help you again by giving you some extra language that has helped some others because there actually has been, and it shouldn't come to this point because, mashallah, we live in a country that values diversity. And when we do the letters, we don't even say Sharia compliant. We say ethical and sustainable because, alhamdulillah, our funds meet both of those criteria. But more importantly than that, usually they've performed so well that it's hard to argue against them. So, but the extra language now is there's been some recent lawsuits where employees have sued some employers, large employers, because the fund selections that they had were so poor that they lost money, and they said, we want you to make up for the difference of our loss. So if you're, I'm not saying you should threaten a lawsuit, but this would be something good to bring up, and we can help you with, we have a draft letter, but we would have to add some of the wording. In our original draft letter, that's not how we start. That's not a very good way, you know, even from the Sunnah of our beloved Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam to start a conversation. But we can definitely, with our 401k department, who has more details on the lawsuit, help to come up with some wording that will help with that, inshallah. We do. We have the ESA, or the Coverdale Education accounts. So those can be used. And again, as I mentioned, the Roth IRAs can be used. And I'm happy to talk the individuals through how those two work in more detail, inshallah. Oh, and UTMA, Uniform Gift to Minors, or Uniform Transfer to Minors accounts.
So the question was is that or the comment was, and I'll explain it a little more, is that on our website we have the way we actually make our calculation for zakat, or if you sign up with us, that's how when at the end of the year when we give you the zakat, the amount owed on your investments, we do it on 10% of gains rather than on the total amount. Okay, so there's some backing in this, and we have a zakat brochure on our website. So please download it, and you should be able to read more information about it. The fundamental thing about this is there's a hadith of the Prophet that said that on land that is irrigated, right, it's 10%, not the 2.5. Okay, on the gains, 10% of the gains, partial. So when we first came up with these guidelines, we had the investment committee from the Fiqh Council of North America, who was at that time led by Dr. Taha Jabir Al-Alwani. May Allah have mercy on him. He passed away a few years ago. He basically made the fatwa based on a reading from Yusuf Qaradawi, which basically says that a stock or an investment in a company is a productive asset. It is not a static asset. And because it's a productive asset, you only take 10% of the gains, and in those years that there's a loss, there's no zakat due. Rather than a static asset, which is that you pay 2.5% on the principal every single year. Now, if you think about it from, now I know Amjad talked about one way to do it. I'm going to give you the other side, which is another way to do it is, what I just explained to you, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala encourages trade and investments. And He discourages hoarding and those things, right? So if you have your money in a bank account, or you keep it in gold or silver, how much is it being productive in the economy? It's not. So then you pay 2.5% on the principal, so it's like a tax for you to say, you know what, if you not do anything with it over time, it's going to keep going down. In 40 years, it's going to be worth 0, right? Now, if it's a productive asset, what you do is you take the same money and you put it to work. You know, you put it, invest in a business, you do other things. You know, the people get hired, as money is spent, all of those things. Then you actually pay on the gains only, and if there's a loss, then there's no zakat that's due on it. That's the reasoning that not only Sheikh Yusuf Qaradawi, but also Dr. Taha Jabir Al-Alwani, they both use the same arguments to be able to come up with this calculation rather than anything else, right? One thing that I will tell you is, whatever calculation you do use, if you're using another one, you know, make sure you pay the zakat and just stick to one calculation that makes the most amount of sense for you, and just stick to it. Don't try to, you know, go one way or another. You know, like for example, you know, on the years that there's a loss, like this year, you're not going to pay any zakat. And then next year when there's a gain, you're like, okay, 2.5% will give me 10,000 in zakat, but if I do a 10% of the gains, it'll give me 15,000, so I'll just do it on the 2.5. That's called zakat arbitrage. You don't want to do that, because this is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that you're doing this as an ibadah. This is not your taxes where you're trying to take write-offs as much as possible. So give whatever you can, inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give back. Correct, 10.5. So we do it on a calendar year basis. So we do 10.3% to adjust for the 10 days of the lunar calendar adjustment. But it's 10.3% of the gains. Yeah, I know it. 10% of the total amount would be yeah. No. So like if you have $100,000, yeah. So it's 100, yeah.
No, that's the flexible savings account. A health savings account are for those that qualify, that have high deductible health insurance. We're all going to get there. If you don't qualify this year, it's sad to say, but by next year, every one of us will have high deductible health insurance. And when you have that, you're able to save in what's called a health savings account. You can open that with us directly and invest in the amount of funds. And so it's different than the one you're talking about.
So the limit, just so you know, the limit is about $7,300 for a family. So when you might put some money, the employer might put some money, but it goes away. And for a lot of people, especially the health savings account have been really good as a retirement savings for those who are wealthy. For example, physicians, you know, when they get sick, they probably go to their friend to get cured, right, or to get subscriptions for, prescriptions. So they use that as a long-term retirement saving rather than a health savings account. But you can also do it that way. You can put the money in there, and then take it out whenever your children get sick and they need to go to the hospital, those type of things also. Anybody else? Yes.
I don't know that we do, but as Moni mentioned, he has several podcasts. And when you listen to the podcast, they answer a lot of questions on estate planning, on how do the Islamic funds do versus the market. We have our brochures here that has our numbers on it. So even if you forget, just call us. This is outside of this being our job. Like, I truly enjoy doing this. One is to see the young people that inshallah will have enough to retire and make dua for me, but also to get Muslims out of investing in Budweiser, etc., and making sure that. And then the last one is to help masjids like yours have endowments so that they're sustainable over the long run. So don't worry, just call us. We enjoy doing this. Yes. Yes. We manage the portfolios for people. Is there any percentage or fees? So you have to have at least $1 million. And then when you get to that point, depending on how much you have, our goal is to make sure that the expense ratio is less than being in our funds. So we would have to go through each individual circumstance, but the goal is to try to keep it lower than our funds. It's hard to say exactly because every tier has a different one, but come up to us and we'll show you the different one and send you a brochure, inshallah. On a simple terms, on $1 million, it's about 0.75. And as you go higher, it becomes lower. So, with that, why don't we close general questions and answers? If anyone has individuals come up, please take the pens for those that I owe it to. That's my amana, not the company. And then the younger kids and whoever got the double answer, the magnet is here. I only have one, and that's for you. Jazakallahu khairan. أقول قولي هذا أستغفر الله العظيم. السلام عليكم.